This is it's going to be a one-on-one conversation. It's going to be really cool because I know what you're doing. I really think it's going to be awesome. And I really want to hear your perspective and your heart and why you're doing what you're doing. It's rare to find African-American business owners, especially a yoga studio owner in Dallas. I don't know how it is in the rest of the United States. But when now that you know that Black health and wellness is the topic of conversation, what do you think about that? What does that mean to you? And talk more to the conversation.
What I think about that is, I'm delighted that we are becoming enlightened about health and wellness, because there's something that helped me personally, and I'm able to share my story through all the different ventures that I have. But now to see that it is a national or recognized industry just in general for the world, but also African American, it makes my heart feel so happy.
Aww.
Because I see, like, people don't see everything, but in my own community, just as well as everyone else in their own community, they see the disparities. They see, we are heavy. And then, it was coined, remember, big bone. And in my head, I'm like really a nerd behind this fitness stuff. So I was like, everybody has the same size bone structure. And anyway, so the first thing there, I had to help myself. Right? Because I couldn't help my community if I don't help myself. I was a chubby kid. I was, overweight. People picked on me. And so when I got the time to change myself, it influenced me so much that I wanted to go change my community. So that's what happened when I recognized that for Black History Month, which is every day and every week and every month, every year for me, I was so happy to say, hey, let's touch into health and wellness even more now, because we do celebrate so many other things. So why can't we celebrate the longevity of your life?
Right. And so for this conversation, I know that we have other speakers as well as you that are going to talk about the disparities, the gaps. I mean, we definitely need to talk about it because some of those are still existing, right? Would love for you to share when you first got into fitness, some of the things that you've experienced that you and I have talked about before that were racist or maybe profiled. Like, can you share that story when you first started your fitness campus in Addison, Texas?
You went straight there, and it was actually started at University Park.
Okay, so let's talk about it.
So I started training once because I was overweight. Once I came back from vacation, I was, I started to work out even more and saw myself become better. Anyway, so from there, I began a business. I started personal training. And personal training, it was great, and it didn't do as much as I wanted it to do. But then at the time, the less popular thing was to do group training. Mm-hmm. So I saw that boot camps were becoming popular after that. And I was, hey, I didn't want to, I'm not from the Army. I'm not from the military. So I don't have that background. So I was like, hey, what can be our spin to this health and wellness? And again, training cost is here. Boot camp cost is here. So I'm able to touch more people through my boot camp. And I changed the name to fitness camps because it being a fitness camp and me not having the history of a military background, fitness is my background.
Right.
So I was able to switch that and then able to touch different people with that.
So you're talking about affordability levels,
right.
too.
So that's one. Two, once I started to progress into my business, I used a tactic called guerrilla marketing. And coming from the club industry, that was flyering parking lots, that was going in gyms, giving flyers. It was MySpace at the time. So, and just different ads. Well, from there, we became real popular, because people could afford training. So then from there, we started to branch out and do different locations. And then I went to Addison. And when I went to Addison, that's when the first time I felt the disparity.
Let's talk about that
And,
for sure.
the disparity there is when I had a DJ outside of a corporate building. It was on a basketball court, so they shared the same type of property. Well, I told the DJ to turn it down. It was after 5:30 anyway. People were leaving or going home from work, and the assistant manager of the property came and told me that I was second-class citizen for playing this music.
Whenever you told me that when we were talking about this, I was like, you got to be kidding me. Some person walked up to you,
A woman,
and said, you're a second-class citizen for playing music loud.
For
Is it hip hop? For
health and wellness, trying to help people save their lives and add more days to their lives, and then help them. One, she was overweight. And when she told me that, I knew that she didn't connect on what I was trying to do. So it took me everything in my might not to say something and just make her break down crying. That's just a nice way of saying it. And
so, the story's shocking, I know, because it's modern day. It wasn't even like a long time ago.
That's just one story.
I know. Before we go into that, because I know all your stories, I want to continue to bring this back to the national topic. When we were researching and we're talking about health and wellness, and we're talking about medical support, like the segregation of hospitals, like, no, we don't, it was whites here, colored here, from resources that were like that, right? The segregation of that. And to hear that still seems like it's still kind of visible and still a real life thing that people are experiencing. I know this is 10 years ago or whatever, and you have so many stories longer than that, but still, right? Modern day times, right? So let's talk about that. Another story that you can tie into what happened during that time where you felt there was a clear line between us and them in fitness. So share that other story that you want to talk about that happened to you.
We Rockstar Fitness, and I'm speaking about Rockstar because it was my learning curve.
Okay.
On how to manipulate or move through the industry and attract the things that I wanted to attract, right? So one thing that we did, and I wouldn't say we coined it, but more or less, we put DJs at fitness camps in the early 2000s. They weren't doing that anywhere. And so our program went national for that, right? And all these publications and things like that. So apartment complexes would call us, and we would go literally set up a boot camp on their pool deck and just have fun, run it, give meal plans. Literally have consultations with all these people. And just fun. And the apartment complex was amenity for the apartment complex, right? And so that was a great way to sell the apartment complex. Well, not everybody in the apartment complex love
the service.
Well, one day we were working out outside. It was 7 p.m. And while we were there, DJ was playing, people were working out. This guy walks down in the middle of our workout. It is probably about 40 people out there in this full-blown fitness camp. And he yells in my face and tells me to turn the music down or he gonna go snatch the wires out the DJ booth. Mind you not, I had always have this nod to my DJ of like, hey, he's getting too loud, Don't go over 6 decimals, those things, right? Well, the guy turned and told me, call me an N-word right there.
What? In front of everybody?
What?
I cannot.
Let's pause. Just based off of my history alone, he wouldn't have left that.
Right.
Just based off of my history. We'll get into that later. The manager of the property ran in between he and I because she was out there working out. The manager of the property was working out at my fitness camp. She ran in between the guy because she knew probably in 5 seconds, this is breath, we'll get into the yoga later, that I probably would put my hand through the back of his head.
So let me ask you this. How many people that came to your camp, were they all African American? Were there white people? There's a whole different diverse group of people.
We had all walks of life, because my camps at the time was just $180 for the 5 weeks.
So it
Right?
kind of appealed to a lot of
Appealed
demographics.
to everybody, because we played top 40 music. It wasn't just rap. It wasn't just country. It wasn't just dance music. It was all music. And so that is what helped us become real influential in the fitness industry in the DFW Metroplex because of that. And that's just the club perspective.
Right. So let me fast forward, because I want to make sure I get the rest of the story, and because you have so many to share. Because of yoga, right? Because yoga is not something that people would perceive that is for the Black community, or even maybe like for the Hispanic community, for any community that's not related to the history of yoga. So I'm sure there's lessons from that conversation. I know that you changed your business model. You started to diversify, even from the people that were selling the camps. I mean, we can talk on and on about how you got smart about working the system, right? And kind of
a dry eraser board.
Right. Your whiteboard sessions on how do I go in and I'm not the one speaking, because you know that you're going to have people who are going to discriminate against you because you're Black. So talk about how that brought you to now, right? The yoga studio that you're teaching, and sort of what do you think, how can we use what you already know from those years of knowledge and experience to help moving forward the fitness industry by way of what you do?
Well, first, with the yoga, it was introduced to me, and it was first just a physical.
Yeah.
And then I connected mentally, and then I connected spiritually. From there, a lot of disparities came to the forefront, is because I started addressing them during my practice. Mm-hmm. And so, one thing that I learned, is when trying to grow my business, that people start to see myself. Well, I'm an African-American man. I'm 6'2", tatted up. I present myself with more of an alpha male presence, so sometimes that's not what it should be. It should be softer. Mm-hmm. So I know for myself, in playing chess and learning how to play chess, I manipulated that. But I say, hey, let me get someone, what's the demographic of this area? Well, let me find someone who can sell this particular, to represent the community, whether it's Hispanic, Black, or white, right? Asian, it doesn't matter. I'm going to find that one particular person who can jump into the community and then understand and say, hey, this is for everyone, meaning the health and wellness, right?
But real quick, Ade, so you mentor that, right? You have a lot of people that come and talk to you about that.
Correct.
Like, how did you get into corporate wellness? How did you do all this? So this is sort of a strategy on filling a gap, right? Tying it back. So you really, because I've heard you, and you have a lot of people that come and say, Ade, I really want to get into corporate wellness. I want to get into this. You really talk about how you need to hire people to represent the community, even if they're not Black. Right. If it's like you said, all Hispanic community or whatever. Right. Do you find like that still is relevant as a strategy to go in? Or do you think people need to say, no, this is who I am. I'm a Black business owner. I'm going to go in there as a Black man, and I'm going to just be who I am and sell the service to you?
That's a great question.
How do you feel about that?
I believe that you should represent yourself, yes, but at the same time, this is a platform of a game, right? And if we want to get into the community, say the red block community, well, we got to go pair ourselves up with the red blocks. If not, then they're not going to necessarily just let us in their community, because you have to build trust, and building trust takes time.
Right.
So that one red block I've been building this trust with, or paying, will get me into that particular community. Well, then once I get there, they will let their guards down and say, hey, that's cool.
Right.
And, Mr. Red Block, thank you for bringing him over here. And here we go. So that's I started to see that strategy. Once I saw that strategy, I figured it out. I could go into any industry and do that. The question is, do I feel a certain type of way that I can't do it myself? I literally program myself that I don't have that feeling. It's a weird thing. And I think that I more or less program myself to say, hey, oh, that's what we have to do to play that game over there. It's XXB, push up, down one, boom, boom. Here we go.
Right. But from the outside looking in, some of your peers or your friends in the industry might say, oh, Ade's selling out to the mainstream,
Masses.
to the masses, right? So it's a thin line between that conversation. Do you feel like it's a little bit of selling out to who you are and what you represent?
No, because, I mean, only people who would think that we will be selling out are your newcomers.
Okay.
You know, that's the only people that would think that we're selling out. And I'm okay with that, because then once they start to Google this and do that, they'll find out that it wasn't. And that's not the strategy, right?
Right.
In the industry, you want to grow. And if you don't grow, you're stuck. And if you're stuck, then you're going to be left behind. So what has to happen is you grow, right? I like hip hop. Well, I don't continue to listen to a lot of hip hop guys. I'm 44 years old. So it doesn't make sense for me to turn around and listen to these guys who's singing and they're 22 years old.
It's not aligned. It's not aligned.
It's not. I don't understand. I
Right.
like it, but I'm not going to say, hey, well,
It doesn't influence you.
It doesn't influence
right.
me to make that change, right? Because I've grown past that. So that's okay if people feel that way and that we sold out, you know, because what happens is that they call us to help them get into the corporate wellness industry and what type of steps that we took, right? Because they want to get to that particular point.
So I'm going to round this all out. I think it's important because we talk about this. Obviously, you're my husband. I get to sit at the table and we have these conversations. But I want to talk about this because you and I just the other night talked about how we as an individual can take accountability of learning or putting our ego to the side and really find what is our stretch? What is our stretch? How can we change this? Because the machine's not going to change, right, on its own until we change, right? And then we become sort of the light to help the machine kind of shift or turn the Titanic around. So what is your advice, your closing remarks and your advice for someone like you, a Black man who's 44 or even younger? Because I know you speak this all the time. What is your advice to them on what they need to do for themselves in order to elevate and to open up and to fill the gaps, change disparities?
I don't know. How much time we got?
We got to wrap this up. I know you can go on forever. But I mean, this one nugget, these one caption liners that you post on social media.
I have a lot of them. And one that comes to mind and is based off being in yoga. And it is, you know, breath is life, and in life, you have to breathe. And I know this may sound crazy, but I will tie this all together at the end. Once you start to breathe, you have to focus. That's meditation. Once you focus, then you have an alignment. That's a plan. Once you have a plan, you have action. That's flow. And then once you have action, that's an asana. That's your goals. That's a pose in yoga. And I always tell people, because I think one thing that we say a lot is, man, I'm struggling. Well, the definition of struggle is a strenuous effort to achieve a particular goal, right? And I always give this quote after every yoga class I teach. And it's, your happiness is in your transitions of life. They're not your destinations. And I'm going to relate this back to what your question was. How can we help ourselves? And that's exactly what we're trying to do, right? Well, when you're at home by yourself and you have just you and that in the living room or wherever, you have breath. That's your life, right? From there, you say, hey, focus. That's my plan. What am I focusing on? What do I love in my life? And I tell people, write 5 things down in your life that you love, and then give me 5 ways you can find the money with those things. Once you have that focus, then you get a plan. So you devise a plan. That's your alignment and your practice. Once you define that plan, then you take action. Damn, I don't know what to do. What would you do the first thing if you had all the resources in the world? What would you do? Then now you take that action. From that action comes your asana. Well, in yoga, asana is pose. Well, pose is goal, a goal in life. Now, what is your goal in life? Well, at the end of the day, your happiness is in your transitions. It's not your goals, because you're always going to have another goal.
Right.
Your transition is what? Breath, meditation, alignment, and flow. Once you do that, you'll figure it out. You're going to have some time by yourself, but you'll figure that out. And that's my rounding in piece with this.
I love it. I hear it every day, and you really live by that. And I know that it's changed your life, and I'm hoping that people who listen to this story, it shines light on how they can do theirs. I'm just so honored to see and be a witness to your life. So thank you.
Absolutely.